I'm Claire Davis for Mental Health Chats, and today we're starting the series about men and mental health. So I would love to introduce Rob Osman from Dudes and Dogs. Hello, Rob.
Hi, Claire. How are you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
Good, thank you. I'm really good.
That's good. So Rob's here today to talk a little bit to us about men and mental health, because Rob started a group called Dudes and Dogs, and I'm going to leave Rob to tell us a little bit more about Dudes and Dogs.
Thank you. Yeah, Dudes and Dogs is quite a simple concept, I guess. It's simply down to what's worked for me in terms of my mental health and what I've seen firsthand work for others. It started, Dudes and Dogs, simple principle. We get together as a group of blokes with some dogs and we go out for a walk and a talk. And it's just about realising how valuable that time talking is. But it's also accepting that sometimes men aren't that good at sitting down to talk, and it's giving them a space where you're not sat down at a table. You're not sat down face to face having to talk about feelings and emotions. You're side by side. And by changing the environment, getting outside as opposed to inside, by, say, being side by side, adding the dogs to a distraction, it's allowed men to open up and start talking in a way that some simply aren't used to.
That sounds like such a good group, Rob. Thanks for that. And I'm just intrigued for this series. It is men and mental health, but I want everyone to understand that anything that we talk about can apply to women, anyone else as well. And also, we've all got men in our lives, so it's to help everybody in our lives. So,
absolutely.
So Rob, can you tell me why you started Dudes and Dogs?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's numerous reasons, I guess, but one of the main ones, I guess, is down to my mental health and sort of what I've been through, and the way I saw myself, or the way I thought that people wanted to see me. And I tried to be that for a very long time, and it wasn't until I started being myself and talking about myself and talking about my emotions and feelings that I suddenly, after feeling very alone and isolated, thinking I was quite weird for a bloke, I realised that actually it was the opposite. It was as soon as I talked, as soon as I opened up and spoke, you suddenly realise you really aren't alone, and that actually when you think you're unusual, you're completely wrong. You're absolutely the norm to feel like that. So that was a big part of it for me, was my own personal thing. But also I've wanted to work in mental health for a long time, and I hadn't found the right thing for me. And it very quickly became apparent, as I say, when I was reaching out to friends, when I was reaching out to family, we were going for a walk, to talk about things. And I thought I'd float the idea a bit beyond my family and friends and put it out there. And it snowballed from there. And it turns out there are an awful lot of men desperate for an environment where they can get out and talk, which isn't phoning up a counsellor or their GP. And it's just even a check-in, even if they're feeling fine. It's a chance to come out and talk to others. Excellent.
So what type of men come along to Dudes and Dogs?
We don't have a type. We really don't. We get every age group. 20-year-old lads come along. We have older guys from different generations entirely. We have a huge number of ex-soldiers and ex-military personnel. We have a separate group for them as well. But there really isn't a type. I would say where we've really had our most success, though, is with the type of guys who would never phone a counsellor, who would never reach out for help. And we get an awful lot of those because they feel they're going on a walk. So it's like, I'll just give it a go. It's that sort of thing. There's no overly committed. And that's what's been the most pleasing. We've had guys from building trade, security, military. We've had people who have lost family members and have never had a day's counselling about it and never had help and never reached out. And they've shown up to us and they've told us they're not okay. And that's, for me, that's the key demographic. I was very naive when I started it, Claire. I thought it wasn't going to be about suicide. It was going to be about men's mental health and well-being. And the reality is, it very much is about suicide and suicide prevention, suicide awareness, and giving these guys that space where they would have never spoken. They would have built up that anger, frustration, and it would have built and built inside of them because they wouldn't have reached out to anyone else.
Wow, that's amazing. And I know Dudes and Dogs started here in Bristol, but whereabouts are all of the other groups at the moment? So it sounds like you've got lots of groups.
Yeah, that's a well-timed question because we're relaunching this weekend. So yeah, we did. We've had to change the way we do things slightly under COVID, like everyone else. We've had to sort of move how we do it, and we have to be aware that in public places there is a risk that we might breach some COVID guidelines over here in the UK. So I've had to secure some dog fields, basically, some secure dog sites, so we can have a secure space to do it. So the first one's relaunching in South Wales this weekend. There'll be one in Gloucester starting up after that. We've got plans in Plymouth, we've got Bristol, there's one I'm speaking to in Brighton, in Reading, and then we're sort of slowly moving it up the country, basically. I'm going up to Scotland. In fact, if anyone sees this up in Scotland and wants to be a dog dude, I'm up there at the end of August, and I'm looking for guys to come forward to be trained and lead walks up there. So that's the plan, get it around the UK and then the rest of the world. We are already changing and saving lives, and it's, you know, we only started in October, and it has caught the attention of people in Australia, New Zealand, US, Canada, and if it hadn't been for COVID, I really believe we'd already be there by now.
Wow, that's amazing. So you said it's already changed lives. So can you give us some examples of how it's changed some of these people's lives?
I can give you one from just this week. We have a gentleman I work very closely with called 𝗁𝗵𝗆𝗀𝗆, who you've done an interview with, in fact.
Yes, a few weeks ago.
Tony is someone I look up to and admire hugely. Not only for what he's been through, the fact he's just a thoroughly decent guy, and yeah, I've got a huge respect for Tony. And Tony approached me very early on when we started the military side of things, to talk about how we run it, and he has become a sort of a person I can rely on, who has that experience. Now, our military group has nearly 700 members, I believe, and it's one of the frustrations within the military is that there's a lot of military charities that don't actually do a lot, and they don't help them, so they don't reach to those groups for help. We seem to be having a different effect. Just last week, a guy that Tony served with, who he hadn't spoken to for 15 years, reached out to him and said he was struggling. And Tony realised he had about 2 minutes to speak to this guy. This guy wasn't just struggling. This guy was ready. He was in that place to do it. He knew how he was going to do it. And Tony spent 2 minutes on the phone to him, talking him down, talking him through. He posted, he messaged Tony. He posted to our group, and Tony reached out. Tony got him down from that place and got him on more stable ground, but a few hours later, he sent another message to Tony saying he wasn't okay. Tony put a message on our Dudes and Dogs Facebook group asking if there was anyone in the area, and within 15 minutes, we had someone down with him. And he was being supported because of our group, and he is here today because of Tony's actions and the way that people within that group responded. And the only reason they responded is because they could see it is changing the way we're doing things. And off the back of that, Tony has come up with an idea for a fantastic app we're going to introduce for the military, which will be on their phones and allow them to literally send out an SOS effectively. It will be an app where they can press a button, it will send a call to someone there and then, and they don't have to phone someone, they don't have to call a counsellor, they don't have to say I'm not okay, they can just hit that button. And the wonderful community that is ex-military personnel will reach around and gather him up. The statistics around suicide within military personnel is devastating, absolutely devastating. It affects me, and I can't imagine how it affects Tony. Tony, part of his PTS is losing one of his soldiers in his troop to suicide, and for him to take that experience that affected him so badly and use it to save others' lives, it speaks volumes of the man and what we're doing with the group.
I've actually, Rob, thank you so much for sharing that story. I've got goosebumps and I'm feeling quite emotional about that. And it's just fantastic that people are opening up and talking, and we are saving lives. And that's the aim of Mental Health Chats. It's the aim of this YouTube channel. It's the aim of this podcast, because we need to help people. And people don't open up. So thank you so much. And thank you, Tony. You know, a big thank you to Tony as well. And that app sounds amazing. So if anyone is interested in Dudes and Dogs anywhere in the world, if anyone's interested in the app, you're military, ex-military, you know, even if you're not a man, but you have got men in your life who may be interested, please, I'm going to put the website up for Dudes and Dogs, and get in contact with Rob. All his contact details are on Dudes and Dogs website. I really am lost for words, and anyone who knows me will be quite surprised at that. So thank you for sharing that. And I'd like to introduce our next mental health chat. We're continuing the series on men and mental health. And we've got a man called Warren Davies from Victoria in Australia, who is actually called the 𝗖𝗵𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀. And he does a lot of motivational talks, and he's going to be speaking with us about coping in isolation. So,
well, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, so isolation, we think of the farming industry, but isolation occurs in big cities as well.
Absolutely.
And it occurs for both men and women. So it's going to be very interesting talk. So thank you, Rob, for today.
Pleasure.
And thank you, Tony, as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Take care.
No, I see you soon.
Bye.